Alright guys, how are you today? I just came back from the gym, but there's something I really wanted to talk about. This girl over here is called Amina Hayat. And this guy over here is called a big fucking dog. Yeah. She was found murdered with chemicals in a bathtub in their North Parramatta apartment. And he handed himself in to the cops, I think, or he's not refusing to deny the fact that he fucking killed her. And before I get into anything, I want to say, sorry, I'm just getting extremely emotional. Just know she's 19 years old. Yeah. And that scares the fuck out of me because I have a 16-year-old sister. And the area I come from, this happens a lot. Where guys think it's okay to hit their fucking missus and abuse their missus and control their missus and manipulate their missus. It's like it's become a trend. The toxic. I love a toxic Arab. I love a toxic man. I love a toxic man. You're gonna love it until you end up dead or mentally and physically abused. Because as you can see with the proof and evidence, this is what happens. But I don't blame the girl. He probably promised her the world. He probably told her she's the only one I talk to. He probably promised her everything and anything to get her. But men like that strive and get off on abusing women, on controlling their missus, on making them feel like they're nothing without them and they need them to live. Please, if you love anyone around you, we need to stop thinking it's a trend and it's hot when they're toxic. I love when they're toxic. You're not gonna love it when you're dead at 19 years old. You're not gonna love it. Because this beautiful young 19-year-old girl did not deserve to fucking get murdered in a bathtub from this abusive piece of shit. Because when it happens to your sister, when it happens to your daughter, when it happens to your cousin, and when it happens to your mother, whatever it is, it's not going to be a fucking joke. Girls, it's not hot. Listen to me. It is not hot. Looks fade. People get old and saggy. Looks fade. Do not be with someone because you think it's hot that they're aggressive. That is a psychopathic, manipulative, schizophrenic, who knows what type of person to chemically kill someone in a chemical bathtub. Wake up, ladies. Wake up. Because this can be the way you die. God rest her soul.
Based off watching that, I just want to pose one question to you guys. When it comes to relationships in our generation, are we heading in the wrong direction?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm genuinely like, when I mean, maybe it's my bubble as well, but when I'm on like TikTok or my Instagram and stuff, I just see so many empowered women and females just talking about like red flags and what not to do or what to do when they see certain behaviors and not to take men's bullshit. I've grown up with only sisters and an independent mother who, like, I've come from an abusive family, and like the one thing that I saw from that is, you know, don't end up in that situation or don't be like that. And yes, definitely, like, men are to blame in that scenario. Men are to blame for causing other men to be that way as well. But yeah, like the way I'm seeing the world going at the moment, no way. Like, I think we're definitely moving in the right direction where females are taking less and less bullshit, or just in general, people are taking less bullshit from, you know, or abuse and all that, whether it's mental or physical as well. So I definitely think we're headed in the right direction. Unfortunately, just not as fast as we would all hope for.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, like me personally, are stepping into their healing as well, like trying to actually figure out like what their past relationships are teaching them, what, you know, inner works they can do on themselves as well in order to, you know, understand themselves, understand what they want from a relationship, raise those standards, the bars as well, know what a narcissist is, know how to detach from people easily and not, you know, just give in and not stand up for yourself. I feel like a lot of people nowadays in our age are actually learning to heal themselves and actually take a step back and, you know, reflect on what's going on with them in their relationships. So I feel like that's true, but there are a few people, you know, of course, women, men that are in love with this toxic facade where it's like, you know, a man that's, you know, aggressive. I want a man that takes charge. You know, I know people personally that have left good, so-called good partners to be with people that are abusing them, you know, and they would rather stay there. But that's something that personally that person has to figure out and heal in themselves, you know.
Yeah.
Everything stems from some sort of trauma somewhere.
But also being able to identify like what that abuse or the manipulation is. I feel like mostly the younger generation just think of abuse as like violent, or they don't really consider the emotional type of abuse. I think that's harder for the younger generation. I think as we've gotten older, we've been able to really pinpoint what those things are and just stay clear from it. Like as soon as you realize that in someone, you're just like, okay, that's not okay, and just move on from it. But it's harder for that girl was 19, like it's definitely scarier for the younger generation, I think.
I think with like the rise of social media, it's brought two things to light. Like number one, the fact that like, you know, women seek like, you know, the rappers, the people who are, you know, in and out of jail, like that sort of man is like, you know, put on like a pedestal, and like that's what is like looks like cool or trendy at the moment, and like people want, you know, that's what you see, like relationship goals, things like that. Even the other week I saw like Ari, who is like a rapper's baby mama or something, she got dropped from like Fenty because she was making all these like, you know, insensitive comments to like women who suffered domestic violence. She was saying something along the lines of like, she likes aggravating her man to the point where he like draws a gun on her or something. I didn't quite catch the whole thing. It was along those lines. And it's like,
That's so hard.
yeah, the thing is like, you gotta keep in mind like the people who look up to her are like young girls, you know, like her following is predominantly young girls. And when you have women like that in like, you know, the forefront of social media, like, you know, they have a huge following, is that the type of things you want them to, you know, do with their platform. But then on the other side, there's like, you know, it's brought to light how women don't stand for BS anymore. Like, there was this like thread on Twitter where it was like things that the older generation would allow, like, you know, women would allow their husbands would stay with their husbands, even if they, you know, go off and find like a different wife, like have a whole different family, like suffer abuse and things like that. And nowadays, like girls, like we're not putting up with it, you know? And it's like, I think it's important that we have both, like we have, you know, the negative side, but we also have like the positive side of social media to showcase like, all right, this is, you know, what's happening with like this current generation. We're not going to stand for it. You know, we know what we want. We deserve respect. We deserve, you know, all of these good things. And yeah, like that's just what I see with like this future generation now.
Yeah.
I think coming off kind of what you said as well, like I feel like as, you know, traditional gender roles and stuff start to crumble, relationships start to get better. Particularly because, I mean, again, with stories like that video, a lot of the cases, obviously it can go both ways, but most of the time it's the man perpetrating it. And part of that, not to say that they're the victims, but part of that is because they're conditioned, you know, from a child to be a certain way and to not express in certain ways and to do this in certain ways, to be all that kind of stuff, which results in, you know, obviously everyone starts to baby and it evolves into the monster that do that kind of stuff. But as that kind of falls away, you know, that kind of stuff goes, you know, the kind of toxic stuff starts to kind of melt away with it. You know, I mean, even, I don't necessarily like, it wouldn't necessarily be for me, right? But even just introducing kind of new things, like, I mean, again, like polyamory, for example, kind of taking away traditional structures as well. Actually, that's a bit different from gender roles, but even just kind of like loosening up the kind of view of what even a relationship is, and takes away the pressure of, it's beginning to take away the pressure of, oh, you know, you have to be with the one person, or you have to be in this position, I have to be in this position. And I think that, you know, even though in things like that video, obviously still happening, and there's still a lot of work to be done, it's like, more and more, it's, you know, it's okay to not be aggressive, you know, it's okay to, because there was a point, I mean, obviously that guy is a monster, right? But there was a point where whoever that guy is, there was a point, you know, 50 years ago where everybody was supposed to be like that, you know, and then stuff like that, instances like that were way more common, and they weren't talked about as much because they were more common. It was just like, okay, yeah, bad, going to jail, but it wasn't actually like a big deal. And even the response to things like that now, while obviously the fact that they happen is unacceptable, the response is so much bigger, and I feel like actually, I don't want to speak on if it's happening more or less. I don't have the stats on that, and that would kind of be potentially sensitive to say. But yeah, I think the main thing I guess I'm saying is that I think as those kind of gender roles kind of fall away, and that kind of like, you know, what is a man, what is a woman, that kind of stuff, I think things get better, because I think that's where, I think that's kind of where a lot of the trouble lies, because again, with what a man is comes, you know, the, you know, man in, you know, typical kind of entitlement, you know, power structures, insecurities, stuff that wouldn't necessarily have to be there if being a man didn't look a certain way. So that's kind of where my mind goes with it, kind of coming off.
I reckon to both your points in terms of social media, you see both sides. You see like the happy couples that actually, you know, they have good values, and you have the people that literally worship toxic men. But a lot of people are speaking up, like you said, like podcasts and everything. I don't know if you've seen this TV show. It's called I May Destroy You.
Oh.
Yeah, there was an episode where actually if you're in a sexual relationship and the guy deliberately removed the condom and proceed to have sex with you, that's actually
Right.
That's right.
right.
Yeah.
So in an episode, this girl was actually listening to a podcast, and the girl was saying on the podcast, like, you know, this happened to me and that's actually rape. You can actually go to the police station and report that.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are speaking up, and you know, it's up to you what you digest, but the both sides are there, and you know, hopefully.
In terms of that, I think just like as a community and like society, we're noticing, or like focusing on that more, because I actually did an assignment on this last year, and that's called stealthing, just taking off the condom during sex, and it wasn't considered rape. No way in the world was that considered rape, and we just recently made it a crime. So it's like, as a community, I think we're starting to pick up on these, just like these behaviors.
The frustrating thing is, I think it's because of social media that it's happening now. Like it's taken so long.
Yeah.
And with social media and people actually speaking up about it and saying like what's wrong, what isn't, that like our archaic laws and these people who are, you know, upholding these institutions are, they're not even choosing to do it because it's the right thing to do, it's because they're being pressured to, which is sort of frustrating as well. But I think that's like, there's that accountability culture. Like I know people call, you know, they talk about cancel culture and all this on social media, and it's like, it has its problematic side as well. But overall, I dismiss cancel culture, and I actually look at it as accountability culture, because it is now forcing age-old institutions, toxic people, you know, bad influences, as you were saying, like it is holding them accountable now because they don't have the luxury to get away with it, or like not the way they would have been able to. But yeah, it is frustrating because even though with social media it takes forever for us to actually talk about, you know, what's considered rape, you know, abuse when it comes to women, or just abuse to anyone in general, what's considered abuse or not.
But even like when I was studying it and I was doing all the research, reading the articles of men that had actually perpetrated this, they were like, she didn't say no. Like it just literally stems down to the guy's behavior and just like knowledge of just, I don't know, it was crazy to me that they just didn't even consider it as any sort of abuse, because it's like, we were already having sex. Okay, well, she agreed to having sex with you with a condom on, and now you're doing it without her knowledge, you're taking it off. Like, how is that now consensual sex?
Yeah, exactly.
Just going back to the question, whether like there's hope for the next generation, I think that's it's a good question, but I also think that purely the fact that we are always like evolving means that we are always going to be a better generation than the one before. So like, as you said, like 50 years ago, the expectation and the structures that were in place have changed a lot. Like,
can we actually just, sorry, not to interrupt you, not even 50 years ago, let's just go back, it's like 10.
Yeah.
It really hasn't been that long. Like 90%, I think it's like 90% of the technology we currently have has only evolved in the last few years. Considering that, like it's literally probably only the last 10.
And I just think that because of, you know, thank you. No, I just think that like, for example, I don't have friends that have that kind of view. So even watching that video was just like, whoa, like I know there are people that might think that, but I didn't realize that it was so prevalent in the STEM area. So to me, I was like, oh yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be some people like that, but I also think it's very important to surround yourself with people who have different perspectives, because that way you're not just stuck with one way, and you don't if you don't realize it, you'll like it'll help you realize if like what you're used to isn't something you should be okay with. So I just thought that that girl had been not let down by the people around her as well, but like
No, definitely.
just
Definitely.
like she obviously didn't have enough people around her to let her know that
Support
that's
and
not
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Because and like what you just said, it wouldn't have just like happened overnight. Like I'm sure there would have been gradual, you know, like signs to show that he is abusive, whether it be emotionally, you know, physically. You don't just wake up one day and decide to put someone in a hydrogen bag. And it's like the fact that people around her didn't, or maybe they didn't notice, maybe they weren't aware, whatever the case might be. Like, you know, it's obviously a gradual thing, and she's only 19, so it's like.
It's the unfortunate thing is any money, it's because of the parents. Like I don't want to like make blame and I don't want to make an assumption, right? But again, I can say this not just like, I guess not to say that just because I grew up in like an abusive like household or I saw emotional physical abuse, but also because it's like it's the culture around us. Like we've seen it, whether it's even through our like I'm Turkish, right? So Turkish shows and things like that. They're a big hit, by the way. But so like the thing is, like you'd see these scenes or you'd actually see and hear conversations where like this and this hit me and they like got aggressive or they grabbed me and it's like, oh, that's okay, like that's just normal, that's fine. Like that's the type of things, if you're growing up with that, like
You see it as normal.
you see it as normal. Like as a kid, I wouldn't I would be upset, but I kind of wouldn't bat an eye when mum and dad started like arguing because they'd be like, it's happening like on a daily occurrence. But it's actually not normal. It's dysfunctional. But unfortunately, like when you grow up with it, you actively need, like you said, you need people around you that have those different views or what's like okay, what's not, or to have people genuinely tell you that it's like, oh, this isn't cool, or because you've gone out of your way to do that education. A lot of people don't really know how to do that either.
Can I pose a question? Sorry. Can I pose a question to mainly the guys here? Do you still feel like the nice? Oh, maybe you don't feel like that, but do you feel like nice guys come last still, or?
That is definitely toxic, like sentence in itself. Because if you're a nice guy only for transaction and because you're trying to get something and you didn't get it, that doesn't make you a nice guy if you start acting out for it. So it's just like absolutely not, nice guys don't finish last. It's like it's just typical like shifting blame.
Are you asking as in like, do nice guys generally finish last, or do you mean being nice makes you?
I don't know, just in your experiences, do you feel like when you're just nice, maybe there's a toxic guy you see, like, why would she pick him over me?
I think it depends on what girl you're
There's a lot of girls that do that. There's a lot of girls that do. Like I was saying previously, like I know someone that left a good man that was literally willing to marry them to go with someone that literally beats their ass. So it's like people are just in such a toxic mentality, and going off of what he said, like you have to relearn and unlearn a lot of things in life in order to grow, like in order to really heal, in order to understand yourself, what you want, breaking habits, breaking mentalities that you're taught you grow up with. Like people just choose to, you see someone good, someone nice that's treating you how you're supposed to be treated, but oh no, I want someone toxic. It just doesn't make sense.
I think it's also something to do with like maturity. Like Rebecca was like literally 19, so she didn't even have a chance to experience everything.
That could have actually been her first relationship. If I think about it from like a Middle Eastern background, it literally could have been the first person that she's actually been able to date.
But also in relating it back to the question, is it hurt for our generation? I think what we all mentioned in terms of exposing the previous toxic things that happened in the past and us learning from them is getting a lot better. But I think also with social media, a lot of us, there's a lot of narcissism that's building a lot of different people, and like different other social issues are increasing as we grow with social media as well. So I think those things do have an impact on what relationship will be like in the future. Whether or not it's going to be better or worse, I guess we'll have to see. But there's a balance that you have to find in between like what you get from social media and then the negatives that come with it as well, and how you balance it out in your own relationship and what you choose for your own life, really.
I just want to say something. In terms of her, like you just said, she was 19 years old. Her mind, what I would say, is quite fragile because she's so young. 19 is nothing. It's literally nothing.
Any of us at 19.
Even sometimes, many of us now. We don't know what we're doing. I think when we look at maybe our bubble or our circle or people that we know in relationships and people that are single, it's so easy to talk as well. If I give you a question, if your boyfriend did this in 6 years and cheated on you, would you leave or would you say? It's so easy to say that you would leave.
Yeah.
Because you're not in that situation. As a woman, as well as a girl, we know how maybe maternal we are, whether we suppress that or not, just if we want to have children or whatever. And we also know how emotional we are, how in tune we can be to our feelings. However, when you think you are in love, everything that you've said in this, if you did this and that, that's the thing. She was 19, even me as being 26. And God knows, I'm in a relationship, and I have to say, you know what? If he says this and this to me tomorrow, I'm not leaving. Tomorrow, if he says it, happy days. And I could say, maybe he's a narcissist, but you know what I mean? It's just so easy. So I think that's one thing we have to put in perspective when we say, are they going in the wrong direction or not? Or does it stem from something that's toxic? That's not always a thing. Some people say, I'm not easily influenced. You don't know that. The littlest thing or the littlest conversation you have from someone will influence you. You just don't.
That's why I like her point, sorry to cut you off, when she said that, you know, domestic abuse is not violence, and like you know, they can control your mind, they can make you feel like you're nothing. That's why it's good that people are actually speaking up and not focusing on the very like violence part of it. Like just the little things can make you feel like you're in love and you know you're doing the right thing.
I think and kind of coming off what you said as well, kind of about how like you know how fragile one's mind is and how like when you're in that situation it's different. I think that video it was good the guy made the video, and like I think good message, well intentioned. But I found it I was a little bit bugged by the thing that he was saying, like, girls, watch out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, again, with what you're describing, that's just where people are at. So, who does the accountability lie on? It lies on the perpetrator. And, you know, that video, I don't think it was an intention, and I could see his heart behind it and everything like that. But,
like he did obviously shift the blame to the guy and saying that it's like it's his fault. He's the dog. But in general, it still felt very female, like as in directed towards females.
And it's like you don't need to tell women or anyone to watch out for murderers.
A lot of women already know.
But you have to tell. You know, it's about calling, like in that case, you know, calling guys to be, you know, like step up. You know what I mean? Like you got mates who talk the same way this guy should talk. Stop talking like that.
Whether he had another video or not, I don't know. But that was a good opportunity for him to actually call out men who he's familiar with as well, considering he's Middle Eastern. It's like that.
Because he said it happens a lot in his area.
Exactly. So it's like that video should have solely been focused, if anything, on the tragedy that happened, and then moving into like men do better. Like this is not okay. Like this is not healthy. Like check your problems, check your emotions.
But not everybody knows how to express that.
Yeah, I know.
And like there's a lot of men that like, you know, they all think a certain type of way and they never call their friends out. Like a lot of men that know that their friends are abusive, or they know that their friends are like, it's like women will come and they tell them, or you know, he's just my friend, or he's down for you, or la-di-da-di-da, but in reality their friend's abusive, but they'll never call it out. So
I agree with what everyone just said, but I think yes, definitely I think there's room for both. So in terms of definitely call guys out for that behavior, 100%. It's not okay. Like you shouldn't be doing it. You should be able to see the signs in your friends and everything, and call it out and stop it right then and there. But like you said, not everybody knows like what to look for and what are the signs. So it's important that we do both things. So because in a situation where a girl doesn't know, she needs to hear that message. So it's important as well.
Well, could you say though that because I agree with you, but I mean, could you raise another question though, that like girls already being told to watch out in general?
They are for 100%, I think.
It's very imbalanced. That's the issue. Because I'm not even going to speak for the girls. One of you jump in. Tell me, from what age did you start hearing the constant messaging of how to be careful, how to be safe? Jump in.
Every day. From primary school.
Literally, from what age even? Like, you know, I don't even know what age you girls would have gotten it from.
Yeah, like don't wear anything short. The boys will look at you when you start going out clubbing. Cover your drinks. They might spike your drink. When you're walking home alone at night, be careful. Don't wear your headphones because someone could come behind you. Like, not just for domestic violence, but like anything that could be risky towards women. The shift is always somehow blamed, like, you know, targeted towards the women. But it's like we're the victims, like if anything.
But then there's not that much awareness with the men where it's like this behavior is like toxic. This behavior is
It's
abusive. It's just it's focused on women. Or you should be warned, but you know the men as well aren't aware. I guess.
If it's not taught to them in their own home, it's like it's also not taught in our curriculum either. So it's like, how are we gonna when are we gonna start implementing this in the education system?
And this is where it
Like,
comes
we-
back to it's not like you're not wrong. We should have both sides,
Yeah.
but we already have one side doing all the major work constantly. When are we gonna start doing the other side?
I would add, and I think a lot of that comes from attitudes towards men in terms of it's hard to kind of, I wouldn't say stubborn in a way in terms of pushing that conversation with men, getting them to change. That's a difficult conversation to have, so it tends to shift towards, it's almost like a resignation of, we can't really change our men, but females be females. So it's almost like, it's just almost kind of like men are evil, men are bad, so they're just kind of going to be like that, so let's just prove what we can do. That's kind of why I would say the focus, it's almost like helplessness in a way. That's kind of
No, 100%. But that kind of says as to why guys need to say it to guys more, because I mean, like in any kind of position of those who aren't privileged and those who are privileged, the privileged aren't going to listen to those who aren't privileged. You know what I mean? Like it took,
They never do.
It takes a long time, which is kind of why. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying. That kind of like, we might as well. We can't tell them, so we might as well just tell somebody something. However, that's where it's kind of like the onus comes on the guys to be like, hey, respectfully, step the fuck up. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry.
Because I swore already, so I think multiple times.
Yeah.
Sorry, I actually cut you off before as well. You were gonna say.
I forgot.
Sorry,
Can I interject again and move away from the abusive side and let's talk about money dynamics as well as we talk about social media. Do you think it sets an unrealistic standard for relationships that people look for, and that's stopping people from getting in relationships? Because it's like, it's not like that. What about those styles of relationships?
Just like we said.
No, go ahead.
Just like we said, people understand what the red flags are. Now everyone's looking for the perfect person. So any little tiny thing that comes across, they're like, nah, that's it. I'm done. Like he talked to me, he said one thing I didn't like, or she said one thing I didn't like, or people are looking for the perfect relationship now. What they see in movies, what they see on social media, I don't know. This is real life. It's not. That's not the internet.
And what we highlight reels, right?
Yeah. And what we see doesn't match as well. I mean, obviously, we're a generation with a lot, but we're the brokest generation. By our age, our parents were already looking at houses, getting married, all that kind of stuff. They were set. We do not have that. Anybody who has that is either doing extremely well or they're lying. So the fact
or they're struggling.
Or they're struggling to kind of
activities.
Exactly. Exactly.
That triangle, social career, and whatever else to sleep. It's very, very skewed.
Literally.
The funny thing is so if you have a perfect couple on TikTok, for example, they get sponsored by ASOS or wherever like that. So people say it as a way of if we're showing our days and we're we're vlogging and all that stuff like that, people are gonna real companies are actually gonna get behind you. And now before you know it, you're already painting this picture. Because even if I don't fuck with you anymore, I still have to stay in a relationship because we're making money.
That's a dear and right?
So a lot of people are pretty much completely looking at the wrong thing because now it's a business and you don't even know about it and you're thinking that's couples goals.
All them social media couples they only even show the good. I think that's the one really important thing. I remember one of my cousins used to watch the Diara and Ken and used to go on and they had their goals and rah. And it's we only get a glimpse at maybe 1% of their life. We didn't know what's going on. And then, it later became apparent that they had all this trouble in their relationship, they broke up. But, that was the it couple for so long. And that's even the case for so many other couples that we see. You don't, social media isn't real, you know what I mean? Just because the guy might have money and he takes you shopping and rah. He could be doing things like that, putting the woman in the bath, abusive things in the background that we have no idea about. So it's just yes, it's nice to look at, I think we all use social media, we all have TikTok and whatever, but it's don't let that consume you to the point where, you base your ideals purely off of that. You have to...
Or even your whole identity.
Yeah.
The whole identity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Even when we talk about money dynamics and stuff, right? We've all discussed money dynamics before. But it's I don't care if I'm not earning a crap ton of money. I don't want a shit ton of money. Like, someone else look after me if that's the case. Like, I'm okay to take it back from that gender norm of like be the breadwinner. I'll be the bread maker.
Yeah.
Like, buy the bread, buy me the flour. Like, just I'm okay with that. But it's like that's the problem is because we do see a lot of value placed on like money, income, even when it's not in a relationship sense, even when it's like just self-worth and like where you belong in like society. So all that kind of stuff plays such a big part, and then throw in social media, like you said, you got your sponsorships and you got these like ideal, you know, it couples. I don't know the couples that you're talking about, but like, you know, I'm sure they look like at the time when we all thought Beyonce and Jay-Z, when we realized that it wasn't actually Beyonce and Jay-Z because they're not ideal either. But it's just, it's so much information overload when it comes to that stuff on top of the already like terrible societal norms that we've grown up with and that we're trying to break away from. It's kind of like in this day and age, I'm like, I'm happy to be single now. It's like, I'm actually like, I don't want to be in a relationship because of all this chaos.
I just think that there's like a lot of this stuff happens because we are presented with this idea of like success. And I've come to realize that if I just have a house to like live in, nice people around me, and I'm not hating my life every single day, I'm great. Like, but I don't think that's what's like advertised a lot. It's always what car you're driving, what you're wearing, and it seems like now, and I don't own that many design items, but it seems like now it's like if you don't own something, then like what are you doing? So then I guess that could contribute to people feeling like, oh well, the only way to get there, because I've tried everything else, is to be in something like this, and then you end up in a situation where you feel like you're trapped, and it's not really like that you didn't know that that was going to be bad. It was kind of more like that was what you decided was your compromise to get what you think you're supposed to get.
Going on that, like that was like Sweetie when she put in her song, or if your man doesn't buy you a Birkin, then you know, like throw him away basically. But in reality, like she was literally getting dragged through lifts and stuff like that. Like stuff was going on within her relationship. She was getting cheated on. But you know, these celebrities that people look up to on social media, Ari, all these people that are, you know, rappers, baby mamas and stuff. People are saying, oh, you know, I want a Birkin, I want this, I want that, I want my guy to buy me all these things. But in reality, is that really going to change anything? You're posting up on social media, you know, a bag or whatever gifts your man has gotten you, but are you genuinely like happy in that relationship? Are you actually getting emotionally fulfilled? Are you growing? Like, is there something actually going on here that is setting you up for a steady, you know, home base or something like that? But people are just here for, you know, I'm gonna flex on social media, I'm gonna get all this stuff, and this is my relationship, guys, and they're welcome, and I'm gonna put on social media, get brand deals, get people hyping me, and then nobody's gonna know what's going on behind the scenes. So social media or this generation is just a mess sometimes.
With the money stuff as well, I think it's not also just materialistic. I think depending on your friend group or where you're at, the conversation becomes a bit more serious in terms of who's making more in the relationship. And it's got to be the man. If he's not making more than 80K, I don't need you. If I'm making more than him, well, no. So it's not even just all these low things. And I think maybe it's not funny, but an interesting thing here that has been said is that I would rather be single, or I'm okay to be single if this is what's going on. But then that comes back to the first question. Why are you happy being single if we are going in the right direction?
Well, maybe because we've always been taught that the only way to be happy is to be in a relationship.
That's my actual reasoning. Literally, that's like the thing.
Because I'm literally like, there are people out there, like, I hear people say all the time, I literally don't understand why people want kids and stuff like that. And I would be like, what do you mean? Like, why would you not want a kid? They're like, they're so cute. And then I started to think deeper, and I was like, why did you want a kid? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because then you start to realize, like, oh, you know, there is a lot of selfish reasons why we do a lot of things. So, like, happiness doesn't come from, like, what you're told makes you happy. It's literally understanding what you need and what's going to make you happy, and it's not always going to come from somebody else. So.
Like it's like, well, the bar for happiness is like a lot lower than what social media. I don't know, maybe not the bar might be the wrong word, but it's like happiness is a lot simpler than the social media makes it. You know, and it's like when you like think back to like the happiest time of your life. And you strip away like kind of whatever was going on, you look at how you were feeling, it's like, oh, you know, like even if you were doing something materialistic, how did it make you feel? It made you feel safe, it made you feel you know, it made you feel part of the world, it made you feel present. It kind of comes to that kind of stuff. And so it's funny, social media is obviously bad in that sense. It's the big perpetrator of it. I think it tends to do it more on the bad side than the good side, but the potential flip side of it is that it can kind of expose you to the fact that happiness looks different, depending on what you choose to follow and everything.
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
what you put in
Like,
your bubble.
Yeah. Like, I mean, last year, the last 2 years, my social media changed quite a bit, just kind of through, you know, kind of people I knew. And so I was kind of getting a lot, both from kind of the people I was with and then also just kind of changing my things. And what I've been seeing has changed a little bit. I mean, it's still kind of got the whole, like, oh, you need this to be happy, blah, blah, blah. And it's still that. But, you know, someone introducing the idea of, like, I mean, even, what's an example? Like, I don't know, someone say, I mean, I actually saw randomly someone was like looking like they had a GoFundMe for like a traveling home or whatever, you know? I mean, that's a little bit of a weak example. I can't think of a better one at the moment. But just like, the idea of just showing different alternatives and different, you know, like just different lifestyles of life, different ways of doing it, you know? And it's just like, actually, like, and it kind of takes that kind of main way off the pedestal as well, you know? And also when you just sit and think about it, I'm actually ready for this. Like, I mean, I remember when I was 19, I was like, oh, like, I want to be dating the person I'm going to marry. I want to get married in my late 20s, kids late 20s, late 30s. And now I'm 23, so I'm still not there yet. But I'm just like, damn, wow, like I am not ready for that in any type of way. What am I talking about? Like, you know? And it's just like, you realize that a lot of that stuff is just kind of like just those ideas are just kind of spoon fed to you. But that's not actually what makes you happy. That's just what is expected to really keep a society running, really. You know.
And now there's more of a push for you to be happy before you introduce a partner, kids, you know, material items. Like, be happy in yourself, be proud of the person you are, like in the life that you live, and then go ahead and, you know, have kids and, you know, have a partner and, you know, build a life together. But it's like people used to use kids or, like, you know, their boyfriend or wife or husband, whatever it might be, as like what's it called, like a crutch, like a safety blanket or something. Like, you know, your happiness depends on your kids or whatever. And then it's like, you know, that's where you find like toxic households and, like, you know, abusive family dynamics and things like that. So it's like nowadays on social media you see a lot more, you know, are you happy with yourself? You know, there's more of a push away from like all the material items and like having to, you know, like you had said, the just like looking into yourself and like the healing and the cleansing and all that stuff. So you feel happy like within yourself before you proceed to, you know, pursue all these other things in life.
I think also social media shows us a perfect ideal world a lot of the time. But it negates the fact that it's okay for things to not be ideal all the time. Like, it doesn't mean you're doing the wrong thing. It doesn't mean necessarily you're in a bad relationship. It doesn't mean you're in a bad job or whatever. Like, sometimes things, if you can see the positive end, if you can work towards it, like, sometimes it's worth it in the end if you work towards what you want to achieve. If things are not perfect now, like, don't lose hope in like your life because it's not perfect in what you see on social media.
And it's not going to be perfect when you get to that perfect place.
Life is not perfect. That's basically like life is hard.
Is anyone else getting really frustrated with the whole like happiness culture when it's like, wake up at 6 a.m, make sure you meditate, you journal, and I'm like, even if I've got so many hours in the day, but like doing all of that still feels like, sometimes it feels like a task, and then all of a sudden like, when I haven't done that, it's like it's putting stress on me to like, I'm not happy being happy, I'm not working towards my happiness. I give up, subpar life for me, that's it. I'm cool with that. You know? But yeah, it is, it's so hard because like, everything ends up becoming some form of like toxic hustle culture in some way or another. It's like, once upon a time it was married, have kids, like, you know, have a whole household, look after this. Now it's like shifted into whatever it is, like single, but you know, go work out, eat really well every single day, get your sleep. Like,
that's just not the reality.
Work out your traumas and stuff. It's like, no, it's not at all. So
I think you just have to find what works for you. Like, you just have to find what makes you happy, and that doesn't, you don't just wake up and realize. It's like all your experiences in life, like your previous relationships, everything that you've experienced. Like, today I know what makes me happy because of everything that I've gone through and like, you know, the unpleasant things that I've had to deal with. It's like, I know what makes me happy now, and you just focus on that. Whether it's for some people waking up at 6 and journaling, definitely not me. Don't get me up before 9. But do you know what I mean? Like, it just
Yeah,
varies for everyone,
really
and you
does.
just, through life experiences, that's
I think
you just
that
get to
needs
that
to get
point.
talked about more.
Yeah.
Like literally what you said needs to be shown and talked about more. It's like not all these people telling everybody how they should be living their lives to live it better. It's like
Yeah.
live your life the way you want to, not by like how I told you.
Yeah.
What I always
It's-
post on my social media is stuff to allow people to, I guess, like explore themselves, like self-reflect and have some like introspection about yourself, like everything you've learned. Also try and be authentic, not perfect, because this world is a mess, to be honest. So if you're always trying to be perfect instead of authentic, instead of trying to find your core in, you know, everything you've experienced, you know, trying to reflect back to your inner child, you know, trying to find what actually made you happy once, what did the world take out of you, and how can you put it back into yourself? That's what people need to realize and try to find that like in themselves again, because a lot of people are lost. It's like we're robots going to work, going back. Like even me, sometimes I get so over, I just feel quitting. I'm like, I don't want to freaking work. Like, I don't want to do this. I just feel like a robot. It's like most people are on autopilot. You know, most people are on autopilot. They're like, oh, you know, I should be doing this. I should be putting all their work, like you said before, into a certain schedule, a certain lifestyle, success, what people tell you success is. What do you feel like success is? That's what people need to ask themselves.
I've noticed, just even now, like it is going to be so hard to teach everybody, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but to teach everybody that like this, what you've been taught your whole life is not what like is required to be happy. And I'm not talking about like what your parents taught you and stuff. I don't know if you guys have heard this. This might be a lie. I don't know, but this is what I've been told. But like even the schooling system, you know how we have bells, right?
Yes.
So that's actually structured to like in the old like work days, like they used to ring a bell for when you had lunch and things, and there was to like prepare kids for work. And I remember when I was in high school, I had to do like a speech. I lost, but but my topic I chose was that I didn't understand why you wouldn't trust a 16-year-old with a full license to drive, but you would expect them to start making choices about where the rest of their life was heading.
Yeah.
Because I was literally like, I was at 16, I didn't even know how to like keep up with like the 20 classes I was doing, whatever. Like, and then let alone be told, okay, in 2 years you're gonna have to figure out whether you're going to uni or gap year or whatever, and then all this overload of information, and then you just feel like you fail if you can't make a decision. So like you're already starting like kind of behind when it comes to being happy, because you're just stressed the whole time.
Exactly.
And if you're not stressed, you think you're not trying
That's
hard
the whole
enough.
point.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it was like overloaded information from like high school days just to basically stop us from thinking, so we were just robots ready for the factory.
And until they break those things down,
Yes.
because that means like literally tearing down what the system of school
Yeah,
is right now.
Our education system's a junk.
That kind of comes to like, it's a bit kind of cliche, everyone's been hearing it now, but that kind of comes to the whole kind of classic capitalism thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I didn't
It's
want to
like-
say that though.
It needs to be said.
It's just, just because like, I mean, kind of on what you're saying, it's like, I mean, you know, I don't see myself as some sort of guru, but sometimes there are moments where I just see people, I'm like, how are you not self-aware? Like I look at, you know, just a certain, I won't name anyone, but I look at certain generations, certain parents' generations, certain male they might watch, whoever I'm talking about could watch. Anyway, but I just look at the lack of self-awareness in some people, and I'm just like, how did that not happen? But then I think of like myself, and again, I'm not some sort of guru, but like, fortunately with my experience and with, you know, kind of my upbringing and my mum in particular, and I happen to have been raised in a place where that was kind of encouraged, but it's actually very easy not to be. It's very, very easy not to be. And when you are, you're kind of like, well, how can you not be? But it's like, a lot of people aren't in that. And school does not encourage that at all. If you have a good teacher or a few good teachers, they might encourage it. But the school system in general does not encourage it in the slightest. And it's terrifying. And it's
General free thought and stuff was usually like not something that was encouraged.
Literally, like, and if more people had free thought, a lot of people would leave school at like 15 or whatever, or just, you know, whatever. Like, I mean, I remember like end of high school, like, I mean, I did, like, I'm a very creatively minded person. I did, for some reason, my ass ended up doing construction management. I'm not saying it's a bad job, but like for me, like, not at all, right? And that's because, like, again, it's like, you know, again, certain African male generations as well.
How are you going to make money from this?
Yeah. Money. But also the school being like that as well. And then also they have to go straight into uni as well. Like they didn't encourage gap years, anything like that. Which, by the way, if you're watching and you're young, take a gap year. Take a goddamn gap. Please take a gap year. You know what I mean?
Gap year. Best thing I did, I took a gap year.
My God.
I even changed my course after the first year and I went into something else which I ended up really enjoying.
It's literally like, but the school doesn't encourage that because they want to get you straight in. And I found out recently, and this disgusted me when I found out that schools actually get paid by unis per student when they go straight in.
Don't get.
Which that's no, it's a real thing. It's a real.
That's why they're presses.
That's why they really
push it.
It's like I forgot the figure. Maybe it was like something like 100 to like 500. I forgot the figure exactly, but I was blown away when I found that out. And I was so angry because I was like, how many lives are you ruining? Because you know, like in my situation, fortunately, I was shit at construction management. So I was like, leaving was the only option, and I got into things that I liked and blah 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 blah. But like some people. Like, you actually think about it, some people who are like really good at academics, they get into something that they're meant to go into. They end up doing the whole course, they end up doing the career because they're good at it and they can do it well. And they end up having this entire life that they never chose. Fortunately, I was bad at the path that I was, they tried to shove me into. So I had no choice but to find what I liked. And I'm still finding it now. But a lot of people just like, it's literally destroying lives.
Yeah.
And it's like when you're in that system as well, again, that's even less space to self-reflect because you're just working and because, I'm supposed to be here. So you're not thinking about the fact that you're struggling until there's some sort of like crisis or whatever. So
that supports my whole theory that university is a scam. but like, because when you said that, I like blew my mind because I was like, oh my gosh, I remember watching something and these teachers were talking about how these schools have purposely stopped offering vocational courses because it makes them less attractive to whatever.
They're concerned more about their average ATAR.
So like, if some schools won't let you do VCAL like in the school, so you have to go somewhere else to do it. And it's not just Australia, like everywhere. It's happening. So it's kind of just like not just like one society's problem, it's everyone's problem. And like we all need every kind of person in this world, but if we're only producing certain types of people, and then there's like this ridiculous, which is what I'm struggling like I've struggled with this too, this ridiculous amount of people graduating with what we consider to be like higher end kind of degrees, but there's only like a small amount of jobs because we don't need that many people doing it. Then they end up just being worse off anyway, and then have to start again, spend more money. And that's why I think the whole system
there's a whole mental breakdown that comes with like not being able to get a job in that industry because you studied and this is like how it was paid.
You did everything right.
That's literally happening right now. So even during lockdown and like the COVID, there was no construction workers. There was like like all this work that still needed to be done, but not enough workers to do it. And then like on the flip side, you see like law. I know one of my friends is a lawyer, so he had told me that he couldn't find a job. Like it's so competitive because law is like one of like the careers that's like pushed the most. You get out of law school and it's so competitive. Like you're gonna like take like whatever position you can get, and it's like we've got so much like the supply and demand like in certain industries compared to the industries that are like actually required. Like we need houses, we need trainees for like electricity and plumbing and things like that. But they're still like looked upon like in a negative light because you get a VCAL or like like. We all need like they're required like that's
service people. Simply like service people, hospitality. Our whole economy stopped over the last 2 years literally because no one was allowed to work in the stores and food joints, and everyone went into chaos because they stopped. Not because lawyers stopped. Sorry, too chat. I feel like we're focusing on that. Not because lawyers stopped or marketers stopped or whatever it is. It's because everyday workers who are like looked down upon or their vocations not as important because they don't have to go through super like extensive degrees and other bullshit, but it's like that literally stopped our economy, not the other way around.
You know what's hilarious as well with the whole kind of.
I hate to cut you off.
No worries.
Talk for like 3-5 more minutes. So if you guys wanted to say one thing each, and we'll wrap it up. If you want to relate it back to the topic that we were talking about, you want to talk about this topic, go ahead. But let's just wrap it up.
Can you just repeat the question?
The original question was: is our generation headed?
We started on A and ended on Z.
Well, I was going to say, and it kind of works as a final thought for me. It's just funny because like, And I think it's kind of allegorical for kind of life as well. But even how schools, they don't push vocational stuff. And meanwhile, and then they say like, oh, you're going to do this, you're a doctor, lawyer. And it's like, so you can get that kind of, perfect life or whatever that social media says. But meanwhile, it's like, it's all the tradies that are ones buying houses and they're the one getting married early, starting families early. So it's like, I mean, even just that kind of image is like an allegory for the fact that's just like what we're being told and what we're after isn't what because they say to those kind of traders, oh, like you're not smart or whatever, and it's like meanwhile again they're the ones that are getting all that kind of stuff, and all the ones that are smart are the ones that aren't getting it. And
literally they're putting stuff together that literally like stands up straight still, like whether it's
the maths involved for that is actually ridiculous. Like I've seen my dad do it, and he's a landscaper, and I'm just like, how did you make those? Like he's like specifically cutting like the smallest section and it's all aligned perfectly. I'm like, what?
But it's like one's got the physical stress, right? Ultimately, it's like one has physical stress, the other one might have more mental stress, but ultimately they both can impact you in your health in one way or another. But it's like it's not looked at like it's looked at very differently.
One thing I think that's I want to say like a foreign type of view. So I think, especially from us coming from different cultures, how it is back home, we don't really, you don't really get the opportunity, you don't make as much, it's harder to get a life without doing these things. So when we come here, our parents come here, that's all they're being taught. What they need to do is education here. So it's like, we're always like, okay, well it's kind of like, I feel like even like some people, it's like they look down on, but that's because I guess the society operates a little differently. So like a lot of times people come in here and we're just thinking uni this, and it's like, well, what's actually wrong with being a tradie? What's wrong with it? You know what I mean? Whereas my parents are saying they want to be a tradie, well, that's the worst thing in the world. So,
from my experience when I got here, because I moved there when I was 18, and as soon as I got here, my dad wants to fast track my life. It was pretty much, you're gonna go to uni, you're gonna be an accountant, and that's it. And I'm like,
so I get a say anything?
Yeah, so I get a chance to say everything, but it's like, he has his vision for my life, and I just have to follow it, and I'll be a good son. Then if I go anywhere, then.
So you're a good son?
I know it's like when you don't do that, when you don't do the one little thing, it's like all of a sudden you're a terrible like child and you're ungrateful. It's fun times.
I think they're looking for like, I can sympathize with their view a little bit because like of what you said, like that's where they're 100%. From, and those jobs are the ones that get the money and the security and the status. So they're looking for that for us. I think. Like, I don't know, I feel like probably a lot of us here have had long conversations with our parents about, understanding things maybe a bit different here. And like the way things work, like it's okay for us to choose a different path.
Do you mean you want to be a painter?
And then the ethnic guilt is real.
I was going to say, conversation is a bit more
they guilt trip you into it. It's like, look, everything that I've sacrificed to move to this country and you don't want to go to university. It's like, there's actually no way.
I will say though, whenever I go back to Ghana, because that's where my parents are from, and where I'm from too, I tend to find that even though they don't have as much as I do, they are way more happy. They don't like their cost, like they might not earn as much, but their cost of living is a lot lower. So like what they have, they share, they appreciate. And whereas here, it's like our cost of living is so high, and you might be earning so much, but you feel like you can't share. So there's this like single-minded mentality where they don't
westernized individualism as well when it comes to like compared to actual cultures.
Yeah, and my mum always says now, she goes, when she was young, she was always sold this idea that going overseas, like making it overseas is like success. And then she goes, but it is like this lie that they've sold you because you become unhappy and then you're constantly trying to justify why like you have all this money but you still can't seem to do anything about your situation back home, when they're just like literally they don't like in Ghana, I don't know, nobody wears a watch. Like it's like it could be like you could be like, we're supposed to be somewhere at like 12 o'clock. These people will turn up at like 3 and be like, well, what's your problem? Like I'm here.
The whole problem turns up at 4.
And like no one has a problem with it. So like it's like the end of the world. So I think that they are a lot we all don't appreciate what we have, and when you don't realize that or like when you don't have something, or you feel like you don't have something, you feel like you're always without, and it's impossible to not like feel. But if we could all just share,
there's a whole thing around community,
like we'd be a lot
helping others that
Yeah.
actually make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and mind you, can we just say that overseas they seem to be a lot more open-minded than the people here?
You think?
I don't know about that.
You think so?
Sometimes, okay, like sometimes I just feel like I go maybe in the culture that I grew up. Should I be opening up another topic or just? Put a pin in that for later. Sorry.
But thank you. We're heading into the games room. I'm hot. I know you guys are hot.
I need to go to the
See you now.